Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I got a hot one for you. We're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, and we are going to talk about Critical Role playing Wembley Stadium with Dungeons & Dragons, right? So here we go. Let's jump into it, all right? So really fascinating. So basically a huge moment in Dungeons & Dragons history just happened, which is Critical Role played Wembley Stadium. So let's talk about Wembley Stadium. So first of all, Wembley Stadium is, so let's talk about Wembley Stadium. So Wembley Stadium is a stadium in Wembley, London, and that's a famous region within London, right? And Wembley Stadium. Let's clarify what Wembley Stadium is. So we're talking about the new Wembley Stadium, but it is the spiritual successor, right? The spiritual child of the old Wembley Stadium, which was knocked down in 2003, and then the new one was put in place in 2007. So when you say Wembley Stadium, you're talking about a physical space. There was a 4-year history. There was a 4-year hiatus, but it's the same. And Wembley Stadium is a absolutely massive. It is without a doubt one of the most famous stadiums in the entire world. And you just name a rock star, they've played Wembley Stadium, right? The Rolling Stones, Madonna, like Taylor Swift, you name it, they've been there, right? Like, and just like TLC, no scrubs, right? Like if you're some rank like ventriloquist or something, you're never going to play Wembley Stadium, right? This is like Madison Square Garden. So I saw Post Malone in Madison Square Garden, and he is a huge rock star, and it was an amazing moment. Like, it was an amazing moment for him to play Madison Square Garden, and it was an amazing moment for me to see him, and it was a big deal, right? And so Wembley Stadium is an actually hugely big deal, and like only millionaires play there, right? Like, and just to be clear, they also play soccer there. This is America, and nobody care about soccer here, but they do care about soccer internationally, and you're talking people who've made hundreds of millions of dollars playing soccer. Tennis is played there. It is a really big deal to play Wembley Stadium. So Critical Role just played Wembley Stadium. Me telling you Critical Role just played Wembley Stadium, nothing special there. Every D&D commentary channel on the web is saying, hey, Critical Role just played Wembley Stadium. What's interesting is what they're hiding, right? The real story is Dungeons & Dragons played at Wembley Stadium, right? And the reality is, yes, it was Matthew Mercer, and it was his, it was all the carbuncles that are slammed into his body, right? Like, and legit, I honestly believe Critical Role is Matthew Mercer, and exactly nothing else. I definitely think, he could have chosen, he could have picked hobos off the street, and this. Yeah, that would have been, and that would have been nice if he had done that, because it would have made them millionaires, right? It's the same thing as the Hillary Clinton story, right? Where, Bill Clinton's like, hey, there's your old boyfriend. He's working at the gas station, and he's like, aren't you glad you married me? And she's like, no, don't get it twisted. If I had married him, you'd be working at the gas station, and he'd be president, right? And that's the issue. Is Matthew Mercer would have never played Wembley Stadium. Critical Role would have never played. And actually, let's even get it there. Like, it's not even Critical Role. It's just Matthew Mercer, right? You could replace every member of Critical Role tomorrow, and Matthew Mercer. And if Matthew Mercer's DMing, the whole thing works, right? And you could give, any other Dungeon Master in the world every Critical Role player, and it won't matter. They're not going to accomplish anything, right? It's the way it is. It's the world, man. Like, it's the way it is, right? So, so basically they played Wembley Stadium, but the real story here is that Dungeons and Dragons played Wembley Stadium. And the real story here is the OSR and the indie continue. Like, if you're a Dungeons and Dragons player, you sit down each week, play Dungeons and Dragons, and your Dungeon Master is like, hey, everybody, we're going to play Dungeons and Dragons tonight. Dungeons & Dragons was just played in front of hundreds of thousands, 100,000 fans at Wembley Stadium, and it's a historical moment, and we're all celebrating Dungeons & Dragons because Dungeons & Dragons is an international success. And then, and so that's what you're like, hey, So we're playing Dungeons & Dragons tonight, but to be clear, Dungeons & Dragons was played in a stadium where an English king actually cut the first turf for it, right? Like, Dungeons & Dragons is part of American history, and now Dungeons & Dragons it literally inserted itself into international history, right? And we're all playing as a celebration, right? Oh, you're an OSR game master or you're an indie game master? Hey, everybody, you know what we're celebrating today? Absolutely nothing, because nothing was done by OSR that's historical. There were no blockbusters. There were no new products. There were no video games. There was nothing, because what we play sucks. Thanks for playing, everybody. And the reason why I'm pointing this out is everybody wants to tell you, oh, Dungeons & Dragons is just another tabletop. No, it is the only tabletop role-playing game in the world that is carrying the ball and dunking from 8 feet out, right? Like, OSR and indie are not carrying their weight, right? And I refuse to sit here on YouTube and watch people tell Hasbro how to do what they're doing when they're surpassing every single competitor at the same time, and doing it in ways that are not just on the page, but are massive, huge draws, right? And you will go from Sly Flourish to Jord Fan to DM James to begging you to play these other games, right? And you don't want to, because they suck, because they aren't celebrated. They aren't even remembered, right? Dungeons & Dragons played Wembley Stadium. Nobody else, nothing else. And Matthew Mercer would never have been invited to Wembley Stadium without Dungeons & Dragons. And trust and believe, not a single member of Critical Role ever would have played Wembley Stadium without them being carried on the back of Matthew Mercer. Wembley Stadium is a huge event for Dungeons & Dragons, right? And who is Matthew Mercer? Matthew Mercer is simply a D&D canon author. That's all he is. That's the only reason for his fame, right? And everything he has done with Critical Role, none of it could have been done with Call of Cthulhu. None of it could have been done with old school essentials. None of it could have been done with anything else, right? And so the reality is nobody else is saying Dungeons & Dragons played Wembley Stadium, but that's the truth, right? And we need to remember, every OSR, every indie creator out there, they need to put some respect in their mouth when they talk about Dungeons & Dragons. It's important. Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic, please consider liking, subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.